Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Look, as landscape photographers, every now and then you just find yourself standing before something that is just so spectacular. It takes your breath away. And when it comes to trying to capture it, it's either make or break. And it's so easy for us to just panic and completely screw it up. I've done it so many times myself in the past. So in this video, I want you to join me out. We're going to head out into the wilderness of Fiordland. We're going to be above Dusky Sound. We're going to capture a sunset, and during this sunset shoot, I want to share with you the thought process and what I do when it comes to composition, when it comes to reacting to the light, and hopefully I'm going to give you some food for thought. So next time you're out there beholding something epic, you don't get overwhelmed and you don't make a mistake. And after the shoot, we're going to head back here and I want to run through the raw files with you, and we're going to talk about the image selection process. We're going to talk about light and composition and everything in between. So I look forward to sharing this one. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. Comments are also appreciated. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's go grab the camera gear, the tent, and let's get out into the mountains. All right, guys, we are waiting for the light. So we've got a couple of hours to go, 6 p.m. We've got camp set up here, and what an absolute grand vista. Dusky Sound, have a look at that. Hoping to really create an image which, the goal is to evoke some kind of emotion. That's what I always want to do, but also in this sense, do justice to some degree to how grand this is, you know, in the far southwest of Fiordland. Now, I really like this perspective here because I've got a good solid main subject there, the peaks in the back. The windswept trees are fantastic. There's lots of horizontal trees here which have so much character. They've made for a great subject matter in themselves, which will be in another video. You know, trying to incorporate them into the scene as well. But I love also not only facing this direction, but going ultra wide and just trying to pick up the whole curvature of the fjord. Plenty of options to work with. Now, one of my tips when it comes to composing a scene, being out in the landscape, it's a tricky one because, you know, many years ago when I first started, I would try and really pre-plan everything, and if I got somewhere early like I am right now, I would be out looking for the shot. I would be setting up a tripod somewhere and I would find the composition, then I'd wait for the light to do its thing and I'd go to that spot, that predetermined section, and that's where I'd take the photo. And I'd probably take way too many of them over and over and over and go home with the same type of image. These days, what I like to do, I found that I work best when I'm purely reacting to what I'm seeing and what nature is providing, and I'm not overly thinking. So what am I getting at? I want you guys to try and challenge yourself to not find the composition until the light is starting to get good. Now, you might start to panic initially, like, oh no, I've got to find the shot. If you can control your emotions there and calm down, I'm telling you, you will find the image. It will come to you. And the benefit is that we want to get in a flow state. That's the whole goal. And I find it's easier to get in that flow state when you're inspired, when you're just moved by the place, the moment, you're observing. What's the light doing? Just watch and enjoy. And I like to move around a little bit. I'm not saying you run around like a maniac. It's one of the people say, because without using a tripod, people say, I like the tripod, it slows me down. I can slow down too. When I'm handheld, I just don't walk. But the benefit of moving and walking is that you may find something even better than what you initially had, instead of just getting fixed on that one particular zone. Now, obviously, we're not going to run around like mad, but if you can just start to move around and just watch, take a shot, tweak it, cool, move on, and just see what else you find. It's like a childlike curiosity. So we're going to wait for that light to come down, and then in real time, we're going to try and capture this epic, epic place. He's a bit confused. We're slowly getting into the golden hour now, and that's where the angle of the sun is getting lower, the light is getting softer, warmer, and we're getting less light on the foreground. We're getting longer shadows in the landscape, and it's just getting more interesting. I've got hopes that it's going to get better. You can see on the horizon, it's a bit hard to show you, but there's a gap beneath that cloud. So the sun's here, which means when it gets lower, 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 it'll get a clearing. And when it's in that clearing, it's light. Now, you try not to get your hopes up too much because things can change very quickly in the environment, especially down here. But that is the recipe for some special moments. Colour, good light. Facing towards the main range there. It's got just enough light on it. Soft light. And now, importantly, the foreground. The light has just dropped off, so the foreground is not too bright. You can see, say over there, for example, how bright the light still is, even up here. So using a slightly darker foreground, and that'll make sure that the eye effectively flows on through to that background. I love the sweeping movement of these trees here. They're obviously been battered by the wind, but they push the eye nicely through to that background. And I'm making sure that I'm not too low. I'm at that right height so we can see the midground. That shows some good progression of depth because we've got these trees in the front, which naturally are going to appear larger. And then we can see trees getting smaller, 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 and it just leads the eye through the frame. Really beautiful. Up to the head of the fjord up that way. Has some really nice light, and I like the cloud up there as well. So I'm going to start moving myself to find some kind of foreground to lead me to that background there. I like why we were doing this direction, and we'll probably try that again, hopefully, if we get some color in this cloud, if it doesn't evaporate. But let's move down here. Some good, more windswept trees, which I'm really keen to keep utilizing. Look at these. 24mm, trying to make that background a little bit larger. Now, one thing to keep in mind is separation. See this nice tree sticking out here? At the moment, it's hitting the island. There's no separation between the two, and that really it loses the depth when you do that. So if you can, in this case, I'd go up higher, and now it's separate. You come down, see it's hitting. So keep that separation in mind, and that's for all your layers. The foreground, you don't want that foreground coming up hitting the background, and then that midground if you can. In this particular case, it's really obvious. I think I'd like to just zone in back there and utilize this tree on the left and our tree sticking up as a bit of edge framing with the opening through the middle to that nice peak in the back. And if I zoom, I'll be able to really pull that peak in, skim over the top of this foreground, and then get that background. So let's go have a look at that. I'll change the lens. And yeah, works much better. I'm still purposely incorporating some of these closer trees to give that sense of depth, because we have that near and far. It just really gives it more of a three-dimensional look. Mountain photography, you got to think about the light on the landscape, because when we have that light, it creates those shadows as well, and that's what gives the hills a three-dimensional look. The mountains in the shade go very flat. This is why side light is so good on the mountains. All right, now we're in that zone where everywhere I look, I'm seeing possibilities and I'm getting excited. We've got a couple images there which I think are nice, but I know there's obviously so much potential here. This is the zone I'm talking about, getting yourself in, where the light is just doing its thing and everything starts to come to life. Now, these trees, for example, you'd never plan this earlier on, the way the light's hitting them so gently. Speaking to me big time. Just trying to find one main tree that at least can be the focal point. I think there's one there. Now the light's about to drop off that. That was a quick moment. I enjoy just working with the landscape. The moving, it really is a big part of my workflow. You can see it's not rushed. We're enjoying it. You know, the more you do it, the more confident you get. I like just working with the light and having fun with it. Now that banker cloud is blocking the sun. I think we might get one last burst towards the end. So I'm gonna go back to the wide angle perspective, because by that stage now, those clouds have already got a lot of color on them. And as the sun gets right near the horizon, obviously the color is going to intensify. So I'd rather be on the wide angle so I can pick up that cloud. Absolutely glorious. Well, thank you for joining me out there in the field, guys. Obviously we're back here at the studio and I want to run through some of the raw files now and talk about the selection process and the composition and the light. That was a beautiful afternoon there. Now I've got to say, what happened the next morning at sunrise was absolutely spectacular, but I'm saving that for another video. So anyway, now let me just show you here some of the raws. So keep in mind, these are unprocessed. I wouldn't mind doing a bit of a workflow for the processing in another YouTube video, but for now, let's just have a look at the raws and give you an idea of, you know, what I've come home with. And basically this is the short list of images. So I've got this image here, and then I've got a vertical looking down that direction. This tree one, which is actually processed. I'll just reset that one. So you can see how the original raw looks there. Then going into this vertical frame. Now I'll put these in here for different reasons, so I'm going to explain in a moment why I've put all these different shots in. And then this one here, and then running, so that's part of a focus stack, so that's why there's 3 of that. And then that perspective, and then moving along this perspective here. So just going back to the start, there's a few factors I want to mention. The light on the landscape. So you'll see here, I do like the light that's going on in the background. Beautiful details in the mountains because we've got that good play of light and shadow. We've got light in that distance there on the islands. We're getting some good sense of depth and separation. We don't have the harsh light on the foreground. So I love what's happening in the background there, and you'll see pretty quickly if I just apply, I might just do this to all of them, Command A, and just apply the landscape profile. That's just going to boost the colors and lift the shadows partially. And then maybe just for this image here, we will just raise the shadows up a little bit. You know, I like the light, however, the cloud and the color up there, it's not as nice as what we got later on, say here. So look at that type of cloud that we've got, especially if we pull those highlights down, shadows up a little. It's a completely different feeling that type of day, and the vertical frame as well, same thing. So it's a bit of a, you know, kind of picking what you prefer the most. Do we want to go with the light on the landscape, or do we want to try and get a combination of the two? Getting the light on the cloud and a little bit on the landscape, and that's kind of what we're getting in this frame. We've got the beautiful light on that cloud. It's nice and warm now. Still have a hint of light on the peaks. We've got a little bit of light on the island. This was that final burst I was talking about. Look at the glow out there. Again, keep in mind this isn't processed either, but we've got some really good light to work with. Now if we go back to that first frame, this one, just see the difference. I'll just crop that up a little bit, probably tilt it down a little bit too much there. But I'm not going to use this one anyway, mainly because of the light. Yes, it's good in the background. It's just lacking that color and that type of emotion that I feel we really get later on in this type of frame here. But you can see what's in there. And when I lift those shadows, look at those vibrant greens. Obviously in the highlights, we've got a lot of detail. If I go down to the grading and we say, for example, just warmed up the highlights a little bit, look at the cloud now. It's just going to boost the cloud and those beautiful hues that we've got along the horizon. So I think I'll definitely be processing and keeping, say, that frame, which is 860. I've got the next frame there, which they're both pretty similar. One's at 20 mil, and then that one's at 18. So I'll look at the difference in the cloud though. They're pretty close together, maybe 10 minutes, not even 5 minutes. See, the cloud just kept on drifting away. So I do like the fact that this 860 just has a little bit more cloud. Look, in an ideal world, we would have had more cloud over to the right as well. The vertical frame is one way to get around that, the cloud. But look, the reason why I included this raw file was to show you the lack of light. This was that moment before the sun finally broke through. So it's hitting the cloud, but look, it's not hitting the landscape at all, barely. It was still diffused by that cloud on the horizon. So I won't be using that because this is just far better. We've got the ultimate combination. So I think that will be the keeper. And as I said, not using that one because it just doesn't have those warm hues up in the sky. Now, a similar type thing to discuss with this frame here. Now I'm going to bring the highlights down. This is a focus stack. Bring the shadows up a little bit. And this one, if I was processing it properly, I'd probably cool it down a touch like that. Anyway, you get the idea. Now this is that separation I was talking about with composition, making sure that tree's separate from the background. Now, good transitioning from dark leading into light. The composition, I feel like I like the comp here. The light is working well. As I said, just like on those previous frames though, all right, we've got the light, but we don't quite have the color yet. And then you'll see later on when I shot that similar direction, here, bang, look at the color now. And if we adjust this one, shadows coming up a little bit, even the greens really look nice against those warm hues back there. Pull these highlights down. All right, so we've got, the light is much nicer there. And look how red that is on the landscape. Go back to that previous one. It's just a stronger light. It's a different type of light. There's no real right or wrong. They're both nice, but I like the layering. I know I love the tree layering in the front, the different trees, all those woods just poking through, that nice texture, and then rolling onto that background. But the light there, that's what it's all about. So again, I included these just to talk about light, and you can see the difference. Again, that's nice light. If that's all you got, yeah, sure, that's beautiful. But it's more of a orangey hue, and clearly golden hour, but then, you know, this is just that bingo, that bang, that's the light that we're after. But no right or wrong, personal preference. But I think I like this color combination of the green, the blue, and then that orangey red. It really just sets itself off there. And then the last ones I wanted to show you from the sunset, this moment here, which, yeah, it would have been nice to be up at this perspective. We'll just go a little bit brighter. I'll show you what's in this file. It would have been nice to be up here when the light was properly hitting the mountains, but I couldn't be everywhere at once. You know, when the light was really doing its thing, I was shooting that frame and then obviously that frame. By the time I jumped up here, it was after the light had finally left the mountains. So it was kind of like my plan C. It wasn't top of the list. I do like that type of, you know, it's very interesting getting the rolling trees that are just so characteristic. I love that reflection in the tarn, the big vista in the back. Not decided if I'll be actually keeping that. Probably not, just not enough light going on. But I thought I'd show you that one anyway. So it was a beautiful little moment there. And then the last frame that I was shooting was here, again, looking back eastward, big focus stack, bring out the details for you. This frame is tighter, so that's at 50 mil, and it's got that nice light. 50 mil compared to the other one here, which, what's that, about 35 mil. This one has a little bit more light, and obviously it's a little bit wider and different composition. This is where we have that separation with our tree, and then later on when I shot this tighter frame, it didn't have the separation there. But I don't mind the, you know, the way it is balancing things out and really pushing us through. I think there's just not enough light. So it's that balancing act of getting the soft light, but making sure you've still got enough to bring the landscape to life. That one there, and then that one there. So that's part of a focus stack. So I'd like to process those properly. And of course, as always, you just sit on them and take your time. Thanks for joining this video. I hope you picked up a few different tips there in regards to composition and just that workflow out in the field. And even when it comes down to the image selection process, it's just nice to share it with you guys. And yeah, this is my passion, just getting out there and capturing these parts of Fiordland and of the South Island. This is what I truly love, and what a pleasure to get amongst and experience those moments. So thank you for letting me share it with you. It means a lot. If you have any questions at all about the workflow, anything whatsoever, you know the drill. Just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. I hate saying it, but if you can remember to give the video a thumbs up, it actually goes a long way in just helping the channel to grow and helping the algorithm just get the video out there to other people that might enjoy this content. So thank you for letting me share my work with you, this part of the world, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Cheers.